Good morning, this is Jaya Kumari, Assistant Professor of English. Today we are going to see Translation Theory and Practice, which has been assigned for second MA English students in their third semester. This will be the last video on Unit 1. In this video we will cover levels of translation, decoding and recoding, and the product and process of translation. So we will start with levels of translation. What is levels of translation? It is nothing but a process which a translator should keep in mind before he starts to translate a source text. Actually, it consists of 4 levels which a translator should keep in mind when he starts the job of translating a work. So, we move on to first level of translation. It is actually textual level, which involves working on the source language text. It is the level of language where conversions are made intuitively and automatically. The source language grammar is translated into target language. Equivalent and lexical units are translated into sense that is appropriate to the context. So what it has been given over here is, when the translator starts to translate a work, he first goes through the source text. So while doing the translation mentally, he has to think over many things, like mainly the lexical parts. So how to translate the source text to target text. So you have to mentally think over that while he going through the source text. So that is what is very necessary. That is what he has to think. So that is why it is called as textual level. Why? Because while going through the source text, the translator has to mentally manipulate what are the things, where are the things he will bring changes over this. So that is very important. Moving on to second level. This method involves reading the whole text for 2 or 3 times and looking for the intention, register and tone in order to mark the difficult words and passages. After taking the bearings, one can proceed with translating of a text. This method is more suitable for technical or institutional text, whereas the first approach is preferred for a relatively easy text, while the second approach is preferred for a harder one. So it is very much like the first level, but this second level is meant for, as we said, for technical and institutional text, because it needs very detailed manner of translation, and one has to think a lot to make the reader convenient with the intention of the writer while writing the source text. So what he had in his thought, what he had in his mind when he started to write. So what is the way he want to convey the message. So all these things has to be kept in mind when the translator translate the text from source to target. Whereas first, as we have done before, first approach, first level is meant for easy one. It doesn't take much work for the translator to translate, whereas this one the translator has to go through very deeply, and we have to evaluate a lot before he translate to target text. So moving on to third level, it is the cursor level, which links the first and the second level that a translator has to bear in mind. It is more general and grammatical, which traces the train of thought, the feeling tone, which can be positive or negative, and the various presuppositions of the source language text. So in this, it has been clearly mentioned, it is a cohesive. Cursor level means we have to join 2 things. That is, in this first level and second level will merge, so that a translator can give very better compared to the first 2 levels meaning and translation to the source text, because he has to be very fluent. He has to be very in a flow of mind while translating the source text to target text. So compared to first and second level, third level is quite high, is considered in a higher way, because it gives much more importance to source text, and while translating the works, it can give both positive and negative effect also, but still he has to do the work in the best manner. This third level also follows both the structure and the moods of the text. It links the sentences through the connective words like conjunctions, enumerations, reiterations, definite articles, general words, referential synonyms, and punctuation marks, proceeding from the known information to the new information like preposition, opposition, continuation, and conclusion. So compared to first two levels, this level has a lot of work for the translator, as it has to while translating the source text to target text, everything has to be keep in mind before translating the works. As I said, conjunctions, while joining the two words or two sentences, conjunctions to be kept in mind. Enumerations, he has to give certain explanations. Repetitions will be there. Articles should be used properly. General words, like very ordinary words, which should be very easily understandable by the reader, should be keep in mind. So synonyms, punctuation marks plays a very crucial role while translating the source text to target text, because as it's a translation work, for better understanding, the punctuation mark should be in a proper manner so that readers can understand better, because translation it means that people from worldwide are going to refer that work, and so it should be according to the convenience. So these are the many things which a translator keep in mind before translating from source text to target text. So this is the last level of translation, that is fourth level. According to this level, the language used by the writer should be very in a natural way in the sense, if the writer used idioms in his own language in the source text, according to that, the translator should convert or translate the idiom in the target text, so that the meaning should not get lost while translating. So that naturalness is necessary. It should be taken care by the translator while translating the work. If the idioms or phrases couldn't get translated accordingly in the target text, it will lose its naturalness. So this should be kept in mind of the translator while translating. So this is the last level of translation. So it's a next topic, decoding and recoding in translation. What is decoding? Decoding is understanding the language of the source text is decoding, and recoding is converting that source text to target text so that all can understand that. That is recoding. In this, it is the job of the translator to be aware of both the languages. Then only he will be able to understand the source text, that is, he can decode it and he can convert to target text, that is recoding. So it is the duty of the translator to be aware of both the languages very thoroughly, so that he can produce a good work so that his readers can make use of it. So decoding consists of comprehension and analysis, while recoding consists of reformulation and restructuring. So it's very clear. So decoding consists of comprehension, understanding, and analysis, because while going through the source text, one should have enough knowledge to understand and analyze the source text. While recoding consists of reformulation and restructuring. Obviously, when we understood the source text properly, means we have to reformulate it, we have to give it a form, we have to restructure it. So that is the job of recoding. The transfer from decoding to recoding takes place in the subconscious part of the mind. The translator first understands the cultural aspects, the linguistic aspects, and ideologies aspects of the text. He understands the contents in the text. He should understand the words, neologism, figures of speech, acronyms, and ambiguities. This is a fact, because before converting the source text to target text, he must be aware of all these things. Until and unless he won't be aware of the meanings of words, coinage of words, figures of speech, acronyms, and ambiguities. Ambiguity is a word having more than one meaning, more than two meanings, that is ambiguities. So a translator, before decoding the language, must aware of all those things. Then only he will be able to decode it, and then he will be able to recode it accordingly. So a translator should be very efficient in all these things so that he can give a proper translation. Moving to next. Contemporary semioticians refer to the creation and interpretation of text as encoding and recoding respectively. Definitely they are telling the fact, because who is semioticians? Semioticians is a person who is very good in science, a person who studies about the science. So according to them, this encoding and recoding is really a creative job, because before translating to target text, translator should analyze the entire source text properly. He has to drown deep into the text, then only he will be able to translate accordingly. So according to these semioticians, these people are really doing a job which is of creation and interpretation. The translator goes beyond purely linguistic criteria, and he is actually a semiotician who is involved in the process of decoding and recoding. So according to these semioticians, what they are saying is a person who do this job is actually a semiotician, because he is studying and understanding the languages of two varied cultures, two varied countries. So he himself, a person who does the job of encoding and recoding, he himself is a semiotician. Moving on to next. Nida advocates that the source language text should be analyzed and then the thought should be transferred. The transferred thought would be restructured in the target language. For that, the translator takes care of essential principles of translation, namely fidelity, economy, and readability. So Nida, a well-known person in translation studies, he has said that a person, before he begins his translation, he will go through the source text thoroughly, then he will analyze it, and then the thoughts will be transferred. So that transferred thought will become the material for the target language. Moreover, he says that translator has to follow these principles while doing the translation. That is fidelity, that should be very pureness. It should be very management, that is economy, and readability. The audience should be able to read and understand everything minutely. So these are the principles is followed by the translator while translating source text to target text according to Nida. Finally, we are moving to last topic, that is the process and product of translation. Process is the ongoing process, that is translation from source text to target text is the process. Product is the complete form. The target text is the product of translation. So according to this, a translator has to look up for all the proper names before starting the process of translation. Yes, it's all done, because before starting the work of translation, translator should aware of all the proper names. Proper names could be varied from place to place, country to country, so he should have all the knowledge and information about the proper names. So firstly, he must be aware of all the geographical terms and particularly careful of proper names in medical texts, as a drug in one country is marketed under a different brand name in another. Definitely, what it has said here is 100% right, because from country to country, even within a country, from border to border, certain things can be seen in a different name. So a translator should keep in mind very well that when he's translating the source text to another language, he should be aware of both the things, what is sent in the source text and what is going to be changed in the target text. So he should have a much knowledge about that. So here, example has been given over here. It it may be a chemical formula such as aspirin. The translator must check the spellings of all the proper names as misprints appear very commonly. So even the word aspirin, it's a chemical formula name. While translating the other language, it is not necessary. The same aspirin will have the same spelling. There should be something else. Like instead of aspirin, IN, it could be EN, because it is a country where we can seeing changes in spellings in a daily manner. So we should be having thorough knowledge about these things. Finally, there is a revision procedure in process of translation which concentrates according to the situation. This process of revision constitutes half of the complete process. Revision is a technique that is acquired by a translator. A translator should spend 50 to 70% of the time in revising the text than in translating, depending on the difficulty of the text. It is hard for a translator to make continual improvements while revising, but he can read the text for cohesion of sentences and naturalness of the text. So when the job of translation begins, it has been said that the work of the translator is much given on revision than on translation, because while doing translation he simultaneously has to do the revision so that he can check his earlier part of work, whether he has committed any mistakes, whether he has committed any other kind of mistakes like. So he has to keep an eye on that earlier part, that is translated part, so that in further process means the next part to be get translated can be done well. So most of his time he has to spend on the revision so that next part of the translation can be done in a better way. So this is what is mentioned in this slide about process and product of translation. So translation produces the closest equivalent meaning of something said in one language into the desired target language or languages. So this is the product of translation. In product of the translation, we will see a complete pack of the same work in a different language. So it is very much equivalent to the source language, but now in a different form. But at times it will not be a literal word for word translation, as it is sometimes impossible to do. At the same time, it is mentioned very clearly while translating the source text to target text. It is not necessary that every time what it has been mentioned in the source text will be the same in the target text. At times it varies. So that's why they have given one example. The example goes like this. It's a Spanish phrase, ya vengo, which translates in English as I will be right back. So in English, I will be right back will be said in Spanish as ya vengo. We will see the continuation is coming in the coming video. So according to the example we saw in the last slide, the explanation goes like this also. Ya vengo literally means I am already coming, in the sense that I am back before I ever left. How does that work? The bottom line is it doesn't matter, and that's the nature of translation. So equivalent meanings as opposed to literal word-to-word processing of one language into another is really impossible. So what we saw in the last slide was ya vengo in Spanish means I will be right back in English, but at the same time its literal meaning is I am already coming. So here what it means is you have not left the place, but you are saying I am already coming. It means before leaving that place you have stated that I'm already coming. So you didn't start the journey, but you are saying that. So if we translate the same thing in English, it won't be exact way. we can't be able to translate in an exact way as it's said in Spanish. So there will be slight modifications in the translation from source text to target text. So we can't expect that certain words from in one language can exactly be translated into the target text. It is at times really impossible. It can be said only in a slightly modified manner only. So at last I have finished all the topics which I have mentioned in the unit 1. I hope you will like these classes and you will enjoy it and you will understand everything. Thank you all.